Failing is good. Just dive in, do whatever makes you happy, experiment, play, get messy, get dirty, learn from your mistakes, and have fun.
Hi there. Welcome back to the Wild Business Growth Podcast. This is your place to hear from a new entrepreneur every single Wednesday morning who's turning wild ideas into wild growth. I'm your host, Max Branstetter, founder and podcast producer at MaxPodcasting. And you can hit me up at maxpodcasting.com to save time with your high-quality podcast. And you might also want to make a podcast after this episode. This is episode Hot 197, and today's guest is the pie artist, Jessica Leigh Clark-Bojin. Jessica is, yes, a pie artist, super talented, super creative. Check out her Instagram at thepieous, Pieous. You will never stop scrolling through her Instagram. She has been featured on the Today Show and the Food Network as a pie judge and expert pie taster. She has been also covered everywhere from People to Cosmo to Ripley's Believe It or Not. And she has written the first ever book on pie art called Pies Are Awesome, which is just an awesome pie-tastic title. In this episode, we talked how exactly Jessica got into the pie art game, the cutthroat game of pie art, what her creative process is for actually creating these pies that will blow your mind, and some of the most unusual of the unusual and the unusual. I quite frankly, I'm speechless. It is Jessica who deserves Pie 5 after Pie 5. Enjoy the show. Alrighty, we are here with Shirley the most, and don't call me Shirley, the most talented pie artist, just pie extraordinaire, pioneer. We're going to be setting a record for pie puns you'll ever come across. Jessica Leigh Clark-Bojin, the world's first and greatest pie artist. Jessica, love what you do. So cool and creative. Thank you so much for joining. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Doing great. And I have a bone to pick with you. Not in like a bad way. I mean in the reverse way, because I actually agree with you. Like, people always ask, are you like a cake or a pie person? And I actually am a huge pie fan. Like, I'll take pie over cake any day. And I enjoy cake, and obviously there's times and places and, fancy. There's a time and place for cake, but there's just something about pie I love. And clearly you're in somewhat of the same boat. So thanks for all you're doing to spread the good word on pie.
Yes, my life's calling.
So we're going to get to pie, of course, but before that, I do want to get into some stuff you did before that. And I think it's really interesting because you studied film, you've been a filmmaker. Like, there's something about this area of film that clearly fascinates you. What is it about film that kind of got you hooked there in the first place?
I started out, my interest in filmmaking actually came through the world of fencing. I started out as an épée fencer and then got into theatrical fencing, and I started getting requests to help train actors how to sword fight for film. That was my first introduction to the world of filmmaking, through fencing and sword fighting and stuff like that. So once I started helping actors out with their fight training and all that cool stuff, then I started going, it's kind of fun on the other side of the camera. I don't mind this. So I did a little bit of dipped my toe into the world of acting a little bit. And then I sort of realized that I preferred to be on both sides of the camera. And I really enjoyed producing and making things happen and the whole creative aspect of things. I went to art school for 4 years. So, film projects are really just a big, huge art project with lots of collaborators and stuff like that. So it was super fun and, big, intensive, getting all these cool creative people around you. So yeah, it was always just a blast, but a lot of work.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I've never heard the terms theatrical and fencing next to each other, which you think I would, because it is, there is sword fights and fencing in movies and stuff like that. I guess more commonly sword fights, but fencing is like an art of its own. I feel like that's really, really cool that you have expertise in that area as well. What made you get into fencing slash sword fighting?
After I graduated from art school, I started work as a designer and spent a lot of time sitting on my butt. And I felt like I needed to do something physical, start moving around a bit. But I'm not really a sporty person. I'm not really an outdoorsy person. So I was like, okay, what's something active but also really cool and nerdy? Because I'm a huge nerd. And I was flipping through the little continuing ed thing, and I noticed that there was classes in epee sword fighting. I'm like, all right, sword fighting, I can do that. That sounds cool. And then it turned out it was actually really hard work, and not just the cool, fun, nerdy thing I thought it was. But yeah, I just had so much fun, and I met so many really cool people in the fencing world, like really neat doctors and lawyers and entrepreneurs and scientists and stuff, and other cool nerds that were into fencing. So kind of took over my life for a little while there.
Are you saying this is another new term for me? Are you saying epee fencing? Epee?
Epee. Yeah, there's 3 different swords with fencing. There's saber, foil, and epee.
Oh yeah, I was gonna guess that. Perfect. Oh, that's really really cool. What's something about fencing that people who aren't too familiar with fencing would be shocked to learn?
Ooh, shocked to learn. It hurts. Yeah, I mean, you're wearing Kevlar and everything. You got the body armor and stuff like that, but you're still, wailing at each other with big pieces of metal. I mean, that's theatrical fencing is, you're trying to not hurt each other. So if you're getting hurt doing it in the movies, you're doing something wrong. But yeah, sport fencing, you end up with these big, massive welts everywhere. And
Oh man, what does it feel like when you get hit or like I guess poked with one of them?
well, I mean, it depends on how sporting your opponent is. But if somebody like really throws their whole weight behind it and nails you, it's like motherfucker.
Awesome.
And then you're just sore.
Jeez.
It's like getting hit with a paintball at, like, point blank range.
Yeah, and then you have the theatrical side, which is ideally not having that, but I'm sure sometimes it gets real as well. It's like wrestling, like people get hurt in wrestling too. But is it in the film world, in the film, I don't know why I stumbled over that. In the film and theatrical world, how do you make sword fights or fencing fights? I'll call them. How do you make them feel realistic without injuring the people involved?
Well, I mean, there's different styles and different, schools of thought on that. Like, when you're doing, community theater, stuff like that, safety is always a concern, but safety is, like, really, really a concern if you're doing this every single night in front of people, and there's a lot of, like, every move has a safety on it, meaning there's some technique added to ensure that the actors remain safe. For example, it could be like making eye contact before you swing the sword or making sure you see them start to duck before you swing. That doesn't happen as much in certain when I started doing work with people from the Hong Kong school of fighting, and I'd ask like, "What's the safety on this move?" and they'd say, "Duck," and I'm like, "But what if I don't duck?" and they're like, "Then you're going to get hit," and I'm like, "Okay, I understand." So yeah,
Oh, man.
and that tends to look a lot more realistic because it is very realistic.
It is. So, already we've talked fencing and ducks, so here we are. Naturally, let's move from fencing to pies because I mean everybody who's a pie artist knows you have to study fencing first and then, theatrical fencing and then pies. Like you really pun intended carved your own niche here and almost created like a category in the food world in the art and design world of pie art, which is super duper cool. I mean anybody who likes pie, it's cool anything involving pie, but like if you check out your Instagram, the pious Pieous, like I think I lost days of my life just scrolling through your feed because it is so cool. And like by now you've done so many awesome collaborations with brands and movies and like shows and there's so many different aspects, but like there's so many beloved characters that you've brought to life in pie form. And you invented this thing called a pie scraper, like
Yeah.
yeah, taking pies to the next level. So super, super duper cool. I love to get into your creative process, but before that, like how do you go from fencing to pie? How did pies call your name in the first place?
Well, I was trying to raise money for my next movie. I had just produced one feature film and that was off to distribution, so I was raising funds for the next film. And I had made a New Year's resolution to not eat any sugar that year because I just do that periodically for health reasons and to torture myself. And
More so the latter.
yeah, exactly. I was so desperate for some kind of dessert that I could actually eat that didn't have any sugar in it. I decided that I was going to learn how to bake pies because pies are one of those few food items that are sweet, but you don't have to have any sugar. It can just be straight up fruit and crust. But at this point, I had no idea how my kitchen worked, didn't know how to crack an egg, didn't know how to turn on the oven, any of that stuff. So I'm like, okay, screw it. I'm going to buy a box of Crisco and just follow the instructions on the back of the box and make a pie. And I made my first Crisco based pie. It was an apple pie, and I cut out a dragon on top of it and had it breathing little apple fire because everything I do, I like to do, extra nerdy. And I took a picture of it and stuck it online because I thought my family would get a kick out of the fact that I'm like, look, I'm in the kitchen, I'm baking. And they're like, wow, that's really cool. I've never seen a pie like that before. And I thought they were just, trying to encourage me. And, but it tasted really good. So I did it again the next week and I did a Kraken pulling a ship down. I started making one pie a week just for sort of Sunday dinners and sticking pictures online for my friends and family. And they were like, no, these are really good. You should start an Instagram or whatever, or, at the very least, put them there so you're not bombarding us with your stupid pie pictures all the time. So I'm like, all right, fine. I'll stick them on a separate Instagram account. And as soon as I did that, Bored Panda somehow stumbled across it and did a story on them that went viral after like the eighth pie that I'd made or something. And I was really shocked. And then I started doing some research for inspiration, like looking what other pies people are making out there. And that's when I was absolutely stunned to realize there weren't any other people making pie art. And it was like, what? And I talked to some of my buddies in the restaurant industry. I'm like, why? There's cake art, there's cookie art, there's waffle art, there's pancake art. Like, why is there no pie art? And he said, it's because of the changes that happen to the dough in the oven. It puffs up, it turns brown, it distorts and shrinks. And anyone who's ever tried sculpting with pie dough before, and you have to work really fast because the fat starts melting, they get frustrated. And so they never try it again. And I'm like, yeah, but there's like a million different ways around all that stuff. Like, it's just, basic chemistry. Like, and he's like, well, that's, maybe you're so yeah, I started doing some research and I realized that this was actually pie art and pie scrapers and things like that were huge in medieval times and Renaissance times. Like kings and queens used to have the most epic pie scrapers, like sculpted like dragons and castles and like with live people inside them. And then it totally fell out of fashion once the Puritans got a hold of it and decided that this was like the devil's food or some crap like that. And then, yeah, nobody really did it anymore until me a couple of years ago.
Here we are today. The history of pies in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Well, that's crazy. Yeah. So there's much more pie history than meets the eye or meets the pie. But that's really cool. You got the Bored Panda pickup early on. So you got like you said that was your eighth pie. So like really early on in the grand
Yeah.
scheme of things, you started to get some viral attention with this, which is amazing. Clearly the momentum's carried on from there. At what point were you doing it that you realized that you could actually turn this into like a business and like kind of a full-time focus with what you're doing?
One of the investors I was speaking to about my film said, I'm not going to fund your movie, but I will fund your pies.
Wow, that is a quote. Like I might get that tattooed on me. Like that's an incredible quote.
I'm not going to fund your movie, but I will fund. Yeah. He thought that I should run a Kickstarter to see if there was any interest just in pie art in general, because I had these tools, these little pie guys that I made out of plastic to help me cut things out faster because you have to move really fast with pie dough. So he gave me some money to do this Kickstarter and make some prototypes. And it fully funded in the first hour and ended up at 1,600% funded and became a project we love and got all this press around it and Boing Boing and BuzzFeed and Wired and stuff were writing about it. I'm like, holy crap. So that's, and then immediately after that, the Food Network called and asked if I would make videos for them. And then the Chew called, which was a show that used to be on ABC about food, asked if I'd fly out to New York and be on the show. And all these companies started calling and asking if I would do projects for them. And then I suddenly realized that I was having more fun doing this than I was actually trying to finance and distribute films and all the boring stuff. And I was making more money doing this. So I was like, all right, fuck it. I'm a full-time pie artist now.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like a no-brainer there. I mean, I can't believe you were having fun with pies. Like that just sounds so boring. No. No, whenever somebody finds something they're really good at and is able to turn it into a business, and the next thing you know, oh wait, I'm making more money this way than like my old thing that was taking over my life. I mean, it's just really inspiring.
Nice.
So,
We need a pun counter in the corner.
I know. I'll see myself out. No, I'm sure you've heard all of them in the world. How's this work? Like like I've seen your videos online, especially like the fast time lapse ones. It's really cool kind of seeing everything come together. But as you mentioned at the start, like, it's not like carving a pumpkin. Like there's a lot more involved, and there's different considerations, and you have the dough, and then what fruit do you use, and then there's so many different factors that go into it. So in terms of like your actual creative process, can you walk us through, like, let's say you're commissioned to do like a famous movie character and create a pie of that character. Who knows? We'll make up let's say Max the podcaster. No, I'm just kidding. Whoever, take your pick. Like, how long does that take? What are the steps? Can you just kind of walk us through what that looks like to bring it to life?
Sure. I mean, there's different levels of complexity for pies. There's ones that I can do, in an hour or two, and then there's some that take a couple of days of planning and work. And when I was first starting out, there was a steep learning curve in terms of the science and chemistry of pies. I had a background in science before I went into art. I originally went to university for physics because I wanted to be a physicist. And then I dropped out and went into the arts. But I've always loved tinkering and experimenting with things. And once I figured out a couple of really basic rules about how pie dough behaves chemically, then it was very easy to get it to do what I wanted it to do and still retain the good flaky mouthfeel and all the stuff that's important in actually eating pies. So now when I get a commission for a pie trait, another pun for you, pie portrait of someone,
Oh, nice.
yeah, usually I will create stencil templates so that I can capture the basic likeness quickly. I'll sprinkle like cinnamon through a template, and then I'll just hand tweak it to add a few more details. And if it's a really simple commission, I'll just like cut the outline of the head and sprinkle the cinnamon in and bake it, and Bob's your uncle. If it's something more complex, where they want aspects of their personality integrated into it, or they want me to actually develop a new recipe around it, that can take a couple more days. But yeah, it's basically just art in a circular composition with a little bit of science thrown in for good measure.
Now, I have to stop you right there, because Bob's your uncle. Is that a Canadian term as well? Because I've heard it in the UK, but I have not heard it from someone not in the UK and not with a British accent before. Yeah.
I think it's a Commonwealth thing. Australia, Canada.
Ah, awesome. That's amazing. Shout out my fiance Dana, who loves that term. And anyway, so Bob's your uncle. That always gets us off track, but it's a great term. But it's crazy how many you have a clear step of how to go about things. And so it seems like early on, like the stencil or like the outline for what you want to use is kind of key up front. So are you making the stencils, or sometimes do you get like handed the drawings? Like, how's that work out?
No, I do everything myself. There's a lot of prep work before I actually roll the dough out. Once the dough is rolled out, you want to move as fast as you possibly can. But everything before that, like planning out the composition and coming up with templates, whether they're out of paper or out of plastic, and any experiments or tests you need to do, any armatures you need to build if it's a multi-tier pie scraper, all that stuff happens in the days before. And then once you got the dough rolled out, you're off to the races. Use your tools, move quickly, and bake it and assemble it.
Holy cow. So holy pie. Your comment on dough had me thinking back to like the intricacies, the difficulties with pie. And so you said, like, before everything you brushed up on, which is another pun, damn it. You brushed up on you brushed up on like the chemical makeup of pie. So like what are the biggest factors about pie as a substance, we'll call it, that impacts your creation?
There's two big things going on science-wise with pie. One is the fat that's in pie. The reason that pie is flaky is because there's little pockets of fat trapped in between the flour. And when they hit the oven and melt, they turn into steam. and that creates those little air pockets. If the fat melts before it goes in the oven, you don't get the little flakes. But that means that the dough, rises and puffs up a little bit, which can be a challenge when you're trying to retain sculpture. The second sciencey challenge is the gluten strands. So gluten is like a whole bunch of little tiny microscopic elastic bands. And when they stretch out, they pull back again after in the oven. So if you have a piece of pie dough that you rolled out, and let's say you only rolled it in one direction, you're stretching those gluten strands only in one direction. And then when you bake it in the oven, they contract back and your pie distorts. It shrinks in that one direction. So to make sure that my pie puffs and shrinks in a way that I can predict, I have to make sure that I'm stretching those gluten strands out uniformly. And there's all these little, it's actually not as complicated as it sounds, but there's all these little tricks that I've developed that are quite easy as long as you do them, that make sure that you're not disappointed with the results. Because there's nothing worse than like spending hours painstakingly sculpting this gorgeous creation, and then you put it in the oven and it like puffs and shrinks and distorts and looks all weird and you're all
Mm,
pissed off.
yeah, I'm at, yeah, it sounds like pie sounds like it can be pretty sensitive, which I had never thought about before. But yeah, that's it. I appreciate the microscopic looking at pie from a new angle. Just out of curiosity, how many of your projects do you taste test?
All of them.
Nice. Okay. Perfect. That's the best part.
Yeah.
So I love to talk about some of the pies that you've done in particular. Just first thing that comes to your mind, what is the pie creation or piece of pie art you've made that has been like hands down the most fun making?
I mean, some of them are satisfying in the sense that, you overcame a challenge or you came up with a new technique and you're really proud of yourself. Like I did this one years ago that was like a little Aladdin palace, and it had this curved staircase, and I had to calculate the math of how the angle of the staircase was going to change as it shrunk in the oven to make sure that I made the little steps the right size. And I did it right on the first try, and I was like, yes. But yeah, pie math. But then there's other ones that are just like dirt simple to do. Like I did a Totoro pie that took me like half an hour to make, but it was so cute and my son loved it. And it was, so simple, but so like fun and made people happy. And that's a different type of satisfying too.
Yeah, it is. I'm blown away. Like I think you just took us to like the seventh or eighth dimension there when you're calculating like a sloped staircase in an oven. That's I've never even merely gotten close to conceiving about this sort of thing before.
Like people say, when you're never going to need this, when you're never going to need your calculus out of high school, that's not true.
Hey, pie and math go well together. Obviously, there's
They
like,
do.
and it's part of some of your logos as well. So that's really cool, really sweet. I'm gonna start using the word sweet just for this whole conversation. But so you have that Aladdin one. What was one from like a big name brand or movie or TV character or something? What was kind of like your first pinch me moment when you got a project from somebody like that?
I mean, I think when the Food Network called me and asked me to, the first pie that they had me do was they wanted a Ramones themed pumpkin pie. And I was like, okay, I love the Ramones. This is fine. All right. And I did a turkey version of Joey, and I put gobble gobble hay on top of it. And
I
I
love
was
it.
like, "This is awesome." And by today's standards is like really, really simple, but that was super fun. And having clients, like big clients, sort of lean into the nerdy side of things and the stuff that I like was surprising as well, because I'm always surprised when people let me express myself and my dorky fandoms. I'm a huge comic book nerd. I have zillions and zillions of comic books, and I've got on my wall in my studio the original artwork for the final ever cover of Dark Horse Presents, the Witchfinder cover. So I love comic books and fandom, and just and whenever I get to make a pie based on one of my favorite characters or franchises, it's very exciting.
How often these days are you creating pies just on like, oh, I feel like I'm going to do this today versus like people coming to you and requesting stuff?
I try to do like a 4 for them, 1 for me kind of ratio, but these days it often gets pushed off because I like I'm trying to do I don't know if you're familiar with Bob's Burger at all.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, Bob.
I love Bob's Burgers, and I've been working on a coochie Kobe pie that glows in the dark or is UV reactive for ages, and it keeps getting bumped because when something pain comes in, I'm like, "Oh, I gotta get to that later, I gotta get to that later." So, it's been sitting on my workbench for a long time. I've got the templates done, it's all planned out. I know how to do the UV reactive edible gel for it, and it's gonna be super cool when I finish it, when I get to it. But yes, and it's funny because sometimes the one for me pies end up being ones that people like the most and will often go viral on Reddit. Like I did a Moonlander pie where for whatever reason I decided that I wanted to do a chibi anthropomorphized Moonlander, lunar lander. And that one front paged on Reddit and got written up in Forbes and a whole bunch of other random places. And I also got a whole bunch of hate mail for that because some Americans felt it was disrespectful to put a little smiling face on the lunar lander. But
Yeah, how dare you? I mean, a smiling face, that is so harmful. How dare you?
you'd be
Jeez.
shocked at how much hate mail there is from
Oh my
internet
God.
phrases.
It's all cake people.
Mhm.
So with all this, so I mean, you've kind of alluded to it, but on Reddit as well as Instagram and then through your website and your book, like you really created a passionate community here. Or maybe there was a passionate community of pie people that like found you. I don't really know. It's like a chicken or the egg or the pie type thing. But you have your business, pies are awesome, and then you have your book, pies are awesome, with the forward by Duff Goldman. Shout out Ace of Cakes. That's super cool. How did you meet Duff in the first place, by the way?
He wrote to me when he was doing a TV series called Buddy versus Duff.
Oh yeah, yeah. By the way, I'm in a very unique place to comment on this because we live in Hoboken, so like
Oh,
Buddy Carlos is huge here.
cool.
However, I grew up like watching Ace of Cake, so like I have a spot in my heart for Duff. So it's very no
Yeah.
comment.
I've never spoken to Buddy. I don't know him. I'm sure he's an absolutely lovely person. But yeah, Duff wrote to me and said that they were going to be doing an episode on pie art, and I guess he knew me through. I did Food Network did their first show based on pie art the year before, and I was a judge on that show. So I guess that's how he knew me. But he just wanted some tips on dough handling, and I was like, "Oh my god, Duff is talking. Duff knows who I am." And yeah, we just sort of kept in touch, and he's super nice, and his wife is a super huge nerd, and she's, I love chatting with her too. So, yeah, we stayed in touch, and then when I was writing the book, I just sort of, reached out, and I didn't expect him to say yeah, but I asked, I said, "You're my first choice to write the forward for this. I'd be honored, but I totally get it if you don't have time, blah blah blah." And he said, "No, no, I'd be honored," and that was amazing. So, and then he's been super supportive, like helping me pimp out the book and stuff. So yeah, that was really sweet.
There you go with the word sweet. That's incredible. Well, one, it helps out that his wife is a super mega nerd, but that just goes to show that it never hurts to ask, right? Like even if like no matter how many times you met somebody or even if you haven't met them, like I think more often than not, even if somebody seems bigger than life, like people are just flattered and like probably more willing to help out in general than you'd think, even if they seem really busy. And so that book, Pies Are Awesome, which has like tons of tips for creating pie art, tons of different. Do you call them recipes if it's pie art?
I mean, I guess it's techniques, and then yeah. So there are a whole bunch of dough recipes and filling recipes in there, but mostly I get questions a lot saying, "What type of dough do you use for your pie art?" And the whole point is, I don't have a particular recipe. You can do this with any dough. You can do this with your grandma's secret recipe. You can do this with store-bought dough and everything in between. It's just a matter of understanding the variables of the different types of dough. So I have in my book, and I think the one page that people find the most useful, it's a chart of 12 different types of pie dough and a grid showing all the things that they like to do and all the things they don't like to do, so that people can just quickly go, "Oh, I'm making a pie portrait, a pie trait of somebody, so I don't want to use this type of dough because it distorts more, or I do want to use this type of dough because it has a longer work time, or whatever."
What's something else from the book that obviously without giving away the book just kind of warmed your heart and made you smile to like finally get this in print and be like, okay, like it makes me feel good to share this with the world and people can learn from this.
I like the charts that are easy to look up, the troubleshooting section where people can look up all the disasters that are happening to them and figure out how to forge ahead anyway. That's always helpful because I don't care about perfection. You don't have to be amazingly talented. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be, fearless and dive in. And yeah, things are going to go wrong, but that's okay. And here's how you deal with that. That section's fun too. But I think the most sort of near and dear to my heart section of the book is the community section, where I highlight other people's pie art and all the other people in the community that are worth a follow. And there's a couple hundred people that I've listed there that are just wonderful, creative, open individuals that for somebody who's new to this world and they're looking for inspiration, they're looking for encouragement, if they go follow these people and chat with them, they're going to find a community that's ready to open them or welcome them with open arms. And it's not a competitive, type of frenemy based thing. It's very like rising tide lifts all boats. Let's share our secrets and all get better together type of space, which is so refreshing after. I mean, the film industry is not like as cutthroat as the music industry, but compared to the, world of baking art, it's, so much nicer and friendlier here.
Rising pie lifts all appetites. I think that's the new one. If you're tired of pie puns, we are just heating up, so stay tuned for more. There are also plenty of puns to be had in the podcast world. So maybe, for example, you're trying to come up with a name for your podcast. There is plenty of pun potential to work a pun into the name of your podcast to stand out, be unique. Or you could just call it Wild Business Growth Podcast. That typically works well. Hit me up at max@maxpodcasting.com to save time with your high-quality podcast. And also, if you're interested in getting help on the planning and brainstorming creative side of things that it takes to get off the ground, get that podcast or podcast into the world, email me at max@maxpodcasting.com. Now, let's get to the world of inspiration and creativity as Jessica describes it to a T. You could not have teed that off any better because we're going to switch it up a bit. We're going to do that too, but we're going to switch it up a bit and get to a segment on inspiration and creativity. So this is you more as, as a person, how you stay inspired, people, hobbies, resources, things you do to stay creative. So I want to start on that note that you just alluded to of people and kind of communities that inspire you and others in the industry. Who would you say has been the most helpful to you in terms of giving you the courage and confidence to like actually pursue what you're doing in what is now like a booming reality?
This is going to sound weird to say, but I'm a pathologically confident person anyway. I'm
I've never
okay.
heard that combo. I've never heard that combo as well, but I like it.
Well, to give you a bit of context, when I was 5 years old, I joined my mom. We had this talent show, school-wide talent show, and my mom was in the audience, and she didn't know that I had signed up to be in the talent show. And I had said that I was going to play piano in front of the whole school. And it didn't bother me that I had never played piano before. I just assumed that I could. Obviously, I couldn't, but I didn't care. So yeah, I went up in front of the whole school. I don't know what the hell I did, but yeah, my mom was mortified, I'm sure.
Wait, but you like what came out? Was it just like gobbledygook that came out of the piano, or like did you find a way to string like hot cross buns together or something?
I think I did that,
Perfect.
Yeah, and I used to like paint rocks and sell them door to door without my parents knowing when I was a little kid and shit like that, just to make money. So yeah, I've always been fine with just sort of throwing myself out there and making a fool of myself in public. But in terms of creative inspiration, I'm surrounded by scientists and artists and business people and just crazy entrepreneurs all the time in different fields. And I don't so much look at other bakers necessarily for inspiration. I like to look at sort of ancillary creative fields and see how I could maybe apply them to what I do. So I've learned a lot about engineering and just basic, physics and structural integrity and different materials and stuff like that. That's been helpful in figuring out how to make pie scrapers work and like learning a tensile strength of sheets of dough and how long I can make them. basic, talking to chemists and people who specialize in developing food additives and things like that has helped me develop new materials. Talking to fine artists, printmakers, I've learned a lot from printmakers in my life. So yeah, anybody who's smart and creative, I want to talk to them. I want to know them. I want to be friends with them. I want to dump out what's in their head and put it in my head.
Oh, I love that image. That's really cool. It's like you hear startups and like really clever marketing agencies talk about that they want to hire people from like a mix of all different, pastimes, or even people that spend their free time like doing comedy or like in film or like as an artist, maybe as a pie artist, like all the, people doing all these sorts of things because it just helps to like you just never know where you're going to find inspiration. And when you have like a mix of so many different ideas for so many different spaces, I think that's what helps to figure out how to make sure like you can calculate a staircase as it goes into a pie oven. So there you go. Totally with that. What about hobbies? So you alluded to being a total comic book nerd, and then I think earlier you said you were a huge nerd. So the word nerd keeps coming up. Can you put it in perspective, like the level of nerddom you're at?
Oh my gosh. So, I mean, I have secret little nerd things, Tokidoki guys, like everywhere in my house. I don't know if you know what an AFOL is. AFOL,
A
AFOL.
fall. No, it have something to do with epee fencing.
No,
No.
AFOL stands for Adult Fan of Lego.
Oh, AFOL. Okay. I still haven't heard of it, but I get it now. Yeah.
Cool. So I am a card carrying, literally, AFOL member, and I am obsessed with Lego. I have an entire room dedicated to my Lego hoard. Yeah, I have a bit of a problem. So Lego is definitely my number one hobby. It's like math and art and science and fun and nostalgia and just the satisfying tactile nature of clicking the bricks together. If you're having a bad day, just put two Lego bricks together and you'll just be like, ah, everything is okay. The universe makes sense now.
Words to live by. So consider becoming an AFOL.
Yeah.
And what about resource? I use the term resources, but really I just mean like how did you learn to do what you do, or like what type of content do you consume, or like where did you quote unquote like study pie stuff in order to get good at what you do?
My formal air quotes artistic training, I have a 4-year degree from Emily Carr, and I studied paper sculpture or paper engineering in the Glasgow School of Art for a while. And a lot of that, just three-dimensional material manipulation and sculptural stuff and printmaking stuff, has definitely come to bear in the pie world. It's just another medium, and every medium's got its quirks, and once you learn about them, you can sort of figure out how to make them do stuff. So that's probably the most direct, applicable credential.
You use the magic word, the magic word quirk, which again was like an incredible segue because we're going to get to the unusual, which is pet peeves, quirks, and weird talents. So, of
Whoa.
course, we need to start off with quirks. What's something quirky, not about things you collect or that you're interested in, but maybe what's something a little quirky about your personality that maybe friend, family, your son, somebody calls you out for that's just a little quirky?
I hate ASMR with a passion.
This is so great because I've had previous guests talk about ASMR like in a positive way. So
I
this is
know.
really
It's
perfect.
like I don't know if you're familiar with Firefly, the series in Serenity, but there was a plot line in the movie version where they were trying to make a population more mellow, and they released this compound into the atmosphere, and it made 90% of the population really chill and happy, but 10% of the population turned into these berserker people called reavers that just went on a murderous rampage throughout the entire world. And that's what ASMR is to me. The vast majority of people listen to that like little whispery, "Ugh," and they're just like, I'm calm now. But I'm one of the like, I don't know if it's 10% or 5% that have the opposite reaction to that. The second I hear that little in my ear, I just want to like punt kick my computer through a window. It's just like instant rage. And this is actually a real thing. Like, there is a tiny subset of the population that has the opposite reaction to ASMR that everybody else does. So my husband absolutely loves ASMR, and sometimes he'll forget to plug in his headphones or something like that, and he'll just be like, "Ah!" "Turn it off, turn it off, turn it off." And then I'm all, like, jittery for the next half hour.
Well, I'm not gonna put you through the torture. I'm not gonna do it myself, but we'll give it a few seconds. We'll give us a few seconds so you, the listener, can whisper ASMR to Jessica.
Oh god. Yeah, no, I've told everyone my kryptonite now.
Awesome.
Foolish.
All right. So, hell of a quirk. What is? Well, I guess this kind of applies as well, but I'm gonna make you say a different answer. Pet peeves. What's something else that grinds your gears a little bit? Just ticks you off.
Oh gosh. Hmm.
5 more seconds. I start whispering. No, I'm just kidding.
No, no, no. I excessive condiments.
Where did that come from?
I don't know, it just grosses me
That's
out
awesome.
when people put, like, way too much ketchup and mustard on a hot dog and it's, like, falling over the sides and touching their fingers and stuff like that, I'm just like, "Bleh."
Do you like condiments though?
No.
At like at any amount, or you're like a clean, like no condiments?
No, I'm like a 5-year-old.
Like a 5-year-old. That's
Yeah.
cool. You have some of the best quotes and catchphrases I've heard. All right, and then we will remove the ketchup off of the hot dog and move on to weird talents. Weird talents. I don't know. I just said like talents. Weird talents. This is also known as party tricks. This is like something you're really good at, but it doesn't impact your job. So
Oh
it
my.
could be something around the house, or it could be like a memory trick. What comes to mind there?
Like, instant, like, do something I can sing the McDonald's menu.
Wow. Do you want to do it? Are you up for the challenge?
Sure. I might make some mistakes, it's been a while, but, I'll have a Big Mac McDLT, a quarter pounder with cheese, filet of fish, a hamburger, a cheeseburger, McChicken, and McNuggets, tasty golden French dip, regular and larger size, and salad, chef or garden, or a chicken salad, oriental, and for breakfast, hot dog, cakes, and sausage, maybe omelette, McMuffin, all three kinds of Danish, hash brown, two, and four dessert, hot apple pie, a sundae, three varieties of soft serve, three kinds of cookies, no, three kinds of shakes and chocolatey chip cookies, and to drink a Coca-Cola, Diet Coke, or orange, drink a Sprite and coffee, and a chocolate, also apple, orange, grapefruit juice. I love McDonald's, good time, great taste, and I get this all in one place.
Oh my god. Wow. That no one is ever gonna do ASMR to you again. That was incredible. That was How'd you learn that?
There was a contest when I was a kid that if
Okay.
you could sing the McDonald's song, when you went into McDonald's, you would get a free small fries,
I
and it
love
just
that.
stuck forever.
Like there's something really special and genuine in that I look back of like the length, like that's a ton of time to, for like one thing, a small fry, like a free fries like that.
But if you're a little kid, I mean, that's like currency.
Totally, yeah, and it's something like you like the fact that you still remember that's incredible, and it makes for a hell of a story. So awesome! I'm really glad we we covered the bases with that section. So let's wrap up with some rapid fire Q&A. You ready for it? All right,
Right?
let's get wild. So next up, the Wendy's menu, and then Burger King menu. No, so you were featured by Ripley's Believe It or Not. What was your reaction to finding out that you would be in the world of Ripley's?
Really? Me? Seriously?
Did you believe it or not? No, that's
I
that's
believe
that's
it.
really cool. Yeah, it's almost like, especially like growing up, like I always put that in the same world as like Guinness World Records. It's like those books that just have really fascinating stuff to look through. So that's awesome you were
I
in
was
that.
I was actually really happy about that one because it's something that my son and nephews cared about. Because, it's fine if, like, the world thinks you're cool or you're on TV or whatever, but impressing a 7-year-old, that's hard.
You got to throw like a contest their way, like a remember a menu and get a free small fry. I think that's how you do it. What is something that you learned from being a Food Network judge?
Take small bites because you're gonna have to eat a lot of food.
Oh my god, yeah, that makes total sense. And if you or anybody has listened to Office Ladies, Pam and Angela from The Office, they talk about that on like when they're filming The Office. Whenever there's food, if you're hungry, you want to just like eat a bunch of it right away. But this is like a full day of filming. Like you really need to pace yourself. You're actually eating it. Besides the Aladdin pie you mentioned, what would you say is the most difficult pie you've ever put your artistic touch and brought to life?
I did a treehouse pie for a client that had a lot of different components to it. It had the base pie for the ground, it had a sculpted chocolate trunk, it had a domed canopy of pastry on top that had to be stabilized, and it had a little swing that actually swung with a little character on it. So there were a lot of moving parts, literally, that I had to figure out and make sure it actually all tasted good because I had to eat it on camera at the end. So that was the most complex, but everything worked out really well. And it looked really nice at the end. So,
I extra appreciate the extra pie pun, and I have to ask, what is your favorite pie pun of all time?
ooh, I think pioneering is my favorite because it encapsulates the spirit of what I do and has the pun on top of it.
It is you. That's you. Like you are the pioneer. Last one, and I'm bracing myself because this could go a number of ways. But
No.
how many digits of pi do you know?
Shamefully few, 3.1415926 maybe. I should know more.
535, maybe 4824, something. I don't
Yeah,
know. Now I'm just saying random. Yeah, I haven't done it since middle school.
3.14145.
Awesome. No, that's pretty good. As long as you know more than 3.14, then you're probably more than average. So perfect. Well, Jessica, this has been amazing, and I'm like gonna just eat pie the rest of the week because I'm
Yay.
so inspired. But this is really fun talking to you and
Inspired.
what you do. Oh God, that was great. Couldn't resist, could you? Now, what you do is super cool, and you truly are a pioneer. Where's like the number one place for people to connect with you online? That's part A, and then part B would be where should people go if they're interested in buying your book?
If we want one easy place where they can find everything, my website, piesareawesome.com. That'll get you to my Instagram or to my book or whatever.
Awesome. Cool. Piesareawesome.com. And I'm so glad you locked down that URL because if it went to anybody else, it would be a crime. And then last thing, the stage is yours. It could be a quote, a line. It could be like, performing a piano without ever playing it before, whatever you want. Send us home here.
Send us home. Don't be afraid to fail. Failing is good. Just dive in, do whatever makes you happy, experiment, play, get messy, get dirty, learn from your mistakes, and have fun.
And what is more fun than pie? Seriously, think of anything in the world that's more fun than pie. You can't do it. Thank you so much, Jessica, and Hugh Neutron from Jimmy Neutron. Thanks you as well. And thank you, wild listeners, for tuning in to another episode. If you want to hear more wild stories like this one, make sure to follow the Wild Business Growth Podcast on your favorite app and tell a friend about the podcast. And then pie them in the face. Maybe not, but at least tell them or share a pie with them. You can also find us on Good Pods, where there are fantastic podcasts from all around the world. And for any help with podcast production, you can learn more at MaxPodcasting or MaxPodcasting.com. Until next time, and until next pie, let your business run wild.
Bring on the bongos!